Howdy folks, welcome to a clean-shaven version of the weekly recovery Q&A. There was a question that came in this week asking about mobility in relation to weightlifting, and they were asking about whether or not they should do it before or after. Is it possible to do too much of it? And I thought that this one deserved a little bit more time, so I decided to make a video on it. But before I get started on that, I wanted to say that one of the things that's been happening when I have conversations and consults with people and athletes is that I'm recognizing that there is a lack of education from so-called experts. And there are literally thousands of people that you could find on social media and practitioners that you can go and talk to, and they will talk to you about how to do mobility. They will look at your apparent need for mobility and say, here's an exercise, here's my go-to. And I have go-to exercises for mobility and recommendations and suggestions. But what I also do on top of that, and I wish that more people would do, is to talk about when to do it. And yeah, there are plenty of services out there that will say, hey, here's a mobility schedule. Here's what you should do before you squat, or here's something that you should do this week, twice a week, in order to help your squat. I get that. But what people don't seem to be talking about is how to make sure that you're scheduling it so that it doesn't hinder an upcoming exercise. How often should you do it to get the benefit? Alright, that's A. But B is, how often can you do it while maintaining your current programming and not have that mobility interfere with that programming? Because mobility comes with three parts. Part one is the health of the tissue that you are trying to have moved. So for example, if I want to go into an overhead press, and let's say that my lat is so incredibly sore from whatever work that I was doing that it is inflamed and not in a state that wants to be lengthened, well then I'm going to have a really hard time going into an overhead press with the proper mechanics. The second part is the strength of the actual agonist, or the muscle that's trying to create the movement. If that arm can't get overhead, it could be because those muscles simply are not strong enough to put it into the proper position. And then number three is the actual health of that relationship between the agonist and the antagonist. So if I have incredibly overdeveloped lats, and I realize that there are far more antagonistic muscles involved in getting overhead than just that. I'm just using that as an example. But if I have highly overdeveloped lats, even if they're in a healthy state, the likelihood that they are going to allow the muscles needed to put me into an overhead position with the proper mechanics and the proper tracking as I go there is greatly diminished. So you have those three dynamics. Most people feel themselves being sore and they think, I need to do massage on the lat so I can get overhead. Or they feel like certain muscles are really tight and preventing them from getting overhead. So they're going to take a kettlebell or a lacrosse ball or a PVC ball, and they're just going to smash the area. While this may cause a neurological downregulation of the tension that you feel in that muscle, at best, even if you were to have done it correctly and at the correct time, you've only addressed one out of the three parts. And you see some exercises out there about opening up mobility. And that becomes a really important part too, because it is an exercise. It's a low-level exercise. Your body needs time to recover from that in the same way that it needs time to recover from training. It needs time to recover from accessories, conditioning. There is a component of recovery needed from mobility. And if you do it at the wrong time and you don't recover in time from it, one, you're just not going to receive the benefit, but two, more importantly, you're going to put yourself in a position that has a detriment to your training, and it becomes dangerous. At the very least, less productive. So understanding those three parts really helps to answer, should I be doing mobility before, after, and can I overdo it? Easy answer is yes to all three. Can you do mobility beforehand? Absolutely. It's called a warm-up. Can you do mobility after? Yeah. It's called a cool-down. And can you overdo it? Yeah, because it's exercise. And you can overdo the exercises. You can overdo the soft tissue work. You can do more work than the health of the tissue is ready for or able to handle. But all three of those parts are answered based on that nice little triangle of mobility. Because the warm-up is meant to increase blood flow, increase proprioception, and help the length of the muscle to happen at the proper rate and in a safe manner. But what are you doing if you help the length of the muscle to happen faster and safer? Well, that's part of the umbrella of mobility. You're now more mobile. What are you doing when you do a proper cool down? You're helping to flush out the muscle. You're bringing it down out of sympathetic to parasympathetic, which is going to help to decrease tone. It's going to take you into the healing and recovery stage faster, which means you're going to have a healthier state of tissue. It's not going to stay as sore or as inflamed for as long. Doesn't mean that it won't be, it just will recover quicker. So there's another one of the components. And if you look at the proper scheduling, that really helps to make sure that you're not overdoing it. I work with a number of people where we struggle to figure out where to fit in mobility, not because they don't need it, they need it really badly. But we have to make sure that it's being done at the proper time. If you have a heavy squat coming on Sunday, you shouldn't be doing mobility the way that most people think of mobility on Saturday. You have to sit down and figure out with someone, if you have to do it Saturday, what can you actually do on that day so that 24 hours you are not having a detriment to your lifting? And that's not a complicated conversation, but it's a very specific conversation that you should have with very specific people. And if the only work that you're being handed for mobility is take this ball, take this bar, take this object, and I want you to smash your muscle, and you're going to think that you move better, what you've actually done in that state is induced a sense of therapeutic inflammation, which is not a bad thing, but it is really bad timing. That's the more important conversation that no one is having. So if a practitioner can help you to figure those things out, it's relatively simple to figure out a mobility program that will help you for your specific needs, but more importantly, for your specific schedule. I hope that helps.